Hello and welcome to a brand new list show. I'm your host, Dylan Lang. My usual show is Dylan Knows. I just did my final Dylan Knows episode for 2024 not 10 minutes ago, and I figured I got a little bit of time to kill. And this is going to be the last show I'm going to do for 2024. And I wanted to get my list show. I started the list show, which is a spinoff of my Dylan Knows show this year. I'm only on episode 9, volume 9 as it were, but I had 13 for Halloween and additional 6 or 7 for Christmas. So I've done a bunch since then, but officially the list show is only on the 9th list I've done officially that wasn't connected to holidays. This year, well, let me back a little bit. So this is my list show. These are the list of what I watched and what I saw this year. Hi, guys. I think I know who's watching. Thank you for watching, guys, and thanks for subscribing. It's been a successful year for me, so I appreciate that very much. Anyway, so Dylan Knows is my regular show. I've been doing that for 11 plus years. I talk about pop culture or whatever, and I just finished my last episode of the year not 10 minutes ago, as I said. The list show is a spinoff where I do just any type of list that whatever comes to my head. I've done a bunch of them, and they vary in length and stuff like that. And it's about whatever I feel like because it's my show and it's my rankings. So you might disagree with me. So that's your decision. If you want to say your top movies or say that I'm wrong, whatever, you have a right to, but this is my list and I can ignore your dumbass. So there we go. But this is so this one's going to be a little interesting. It's a good one. I think I'm going to probably start a tradition with this one. I'm going to do this every year. I'm going to keep track of every new movie I watch, not TV show, but like every new movie I watch. Obviously, if I go to the movie theaters, I'm usually going to go see a movie I've never seen before in the movie theaters, and I got a bunch already circled on my calendar for the 2025. Then, streaming has a bunch of movies that are just on streaming that are not in movie theaters, or if they do have release in movie theaters, it's also on streaming concurrently, so I can just watch it on streaming whenever I feel like it. So that's another one. I also have a ton of DVDs and Blu-rays of movies that I've been meaning to watch, but I've never watched before. And I have periods during the year where I'll be able to watch those. So I will be compiling lists from this point on, starting today. Not starting today, starting January 1st. And make this an annual tradition that at the end of every year, I will do my top whatever number of movies I saw. So next year, I might be seeing 2025 movies. So I'll do my top 25 movies that I saw this year. And that will include, as I said, streaming, movies that went to movie theaters, re-releases that came into movie theaters that I saw for the first time in movie theaters for the most part. And movies that may have been out for a while, but are now... but I haven't seen before till I got the video or DVD and got a chance to sit down and watch them because I have a ton of those movies I haven't seen yet, and I can talk about them during this thing. So I'm going to try to make this a regular thing. So thank you for watching and keeping this up. This is my last list show, my last show on my Dylan Knows channel for 2024. My next episode should be my newest episode of Dylan Knows, which will be out on Saturday, the 4th of January, detailing what's going to come over the next few days. And then I still have a bunch of list shows already planned out. I have some that I was trying to do for my Christmas week that I was trying to do, but not going to work out. I might do top winter movies, which January would be a perfect time to do those. There's a few other ones in well that I might do. So, but for now, this one is the top movies that I saw this year. And as I said, is ones I saw in movie theaters, re-releases I saw in movie theaters, movies I saw on streaming for the first time, or movies I saw on video for the first time that I'd never seen before. This year just happened to be 15 that I saw that I can recall. I might have seen more, but I don't think I did. But 15. Now, before I go in, Godzilla Minus Zero came out in December. I saw it in December of 2023. So that is not going to be on this list because it seems like we might have seen it in January, but we didn't. We actually saw the movie. I saw it in the movie theaters in December of 2023. So here we go. Number 15 is Tim Burton's stop motion film, Frankenweenie. Tim Burton did not direct Nightmare Before Christmas. He co-wrote it with Caroline Thompson and came up with the idea. Well, actually, he didn't co-write it. He wrote the original story it was based on. He was the producer. It was his vision, but he did not direct it. Henry Selick did. He co-directed the Corpse Bride stop motion movie, which I haven't seen. That might be on my list next year. See that? I'm a huge Tim Burton fan. I still haven't seen Beetlejuice yet, but I was hoping to get that for Christmas, but I didn't. But I did get some Amazon gift cards, and I can. My wife just got paid, and we got money for Christmas, so I might just go ahead and buy a bunch of stuff that I wanted to get for Christmas that I didn't get. I got a whole bunch of those I'm going to get, so I might just end up doing it this weekend. But I had come up with an idea that when my family goes away for the weekend for camping, it's the best time for me to sit down and watch movies because they don't always want to watch movies that I want to watch, and they're want to watch other stuff as well. I'm trying to get a TV into my bedroom, 13-incher, which I might be able to get for this year, and have my Blu-ray player up there, and then I have a 4K player down for the whole family to watch, and then get a stick, Amazon Fire Stick, to play the streaming stuff so I can watch movies up in my bedroom while they're down here watching 30 Rock or Squid Game or whatever, or playing video games. My son playing video games. So when they're away, I'm able to sit down and watch movies, but I find myself being drawn to movies I've seen a million times that are my comfort films. So I made a decision about halfway through the year this year, that there's going to be one weekend where I'm just going to grab a stack of movies. I'm just going to pile them up, no particular order. Just grab the first one, pop it in, whatever. It was back in October when this happened, and I only ended up watching 3 movies during that segment for the whole weekend, which sucks because I got involved with other stuff, I guess. But in this case, Frankenweenie was number 15. I had never seen Frankenweenie. It is a remake of Tim Burton's short film that he did live action, but he decided to expand it with stop motion. And, decent vocal cast, Catherine O'Hara, Martin Short, Winona Ryder. But there's just something about the movie that I wasn't a huge fan of. It's a nice looking stop motion film, and you can see how far stop motion has come in the 30 some years since Nightmare Before Christmas. But the story itself the short story is a nice one, and it had Daniel Stern in it, and the kid was normal, and it was about a kid whose dog gets hit by a car and he brings it back to life via Frankenstein. This stop motion version did the Tim Burton view of it, which is the real kind of Edward Scissorhands Nightmare Before Christmas sort of style of character, and it was shot in black and white and lots of strange characters, and the storyline is a little weird where he brings his dog back to life, and then all these kids want to bring their dead animals back to life, so they pull them out of the ground, and they don't come back perfectly. It's basically kind of a take on Pet Sematary for the most part. It just sort of ended weird as well. Not one of my favorites, but I did see it, and I probably won't see it again, but that's why it's number 15. But as I said, I'd never seen it before, and I wanted to see it, and I saw it around Halloween. So it was okay, but it wasn't phenomenal. Number 14 is a streaming movie that had one of the greatest trailers, not maybe the greatest, but one of the funniest trailers I'd seen in a long time. And I thought it was a joke trailer at first, but for an advertisement. But then I saw that it was an actual movie, and then the weekend it came out happened to coincide with a time when my family was away. So I watched it along with another movie that's on the list a little further up, which I'll talk about in a second. And the movie is Unfrosted. It is Jerry Seinfeld wrote and directed it with cast a bunch of a lot of big cast with lots of cameos in it. Melissa McCarthy, um, Christian Slater's in it, and there's just a whole bunch of other people involved in it as well. I just can't remember their names right now. And the trailer is phenomenal. It basically is the war between Kellogg's and Post to get out a breakfast treat that is not cereal, that doesn't need milk, that you can just put in a toaster and heat up and eat on the run, sort of thing. And it pisses off the milk contingent that try, and Peter Dinklage is in there as well, who tries to turn Hugh Grant's in it as well. And so the trailer is really it's a bizarre trailer. It's actually pretty funny. And then I watched the movie, and the movie is just, it's a weird, had a couple funny moments, but a lot of it just it's a weird movie. And I should have expected it from what I saw from the trailer, but just something about it just it still doesn't it didn't feel right to me. My friend Gary absolutely loved the film. And we had a little bit of disagreement about it when we talked about that in the week after we saw it. But Unfrosted is, I guess, it's an okay film. It's a bizarre little film. It's unique. It's different, which is what a lot of people are trying to get nowadays. They want to get something different and unusual in film because they're getting the same old stuff over and over again. So it was kind of neat to see that. But at the same time, it just was a little too weird for my tastes. And I don't know what else I could say about it. It's just it's a bizarre little film, but it's well worth it to see Hugh Grant dressed up as Tony the Tiger. So that's funny. So that's number 14. Number 13 is Colossal. Anne Hathaway stars in this other really bizarre film. I think it's a Korean-made film. Jason Sudeikis, who played Ted Lasso, is in this as well. And the premise is Anne Hathaway plays a woman who is kind of a layabout, is dating a rich guy and just doesn't really do much, goes out and parties all night and comes back drunk, and her boyfriend is worried about her and doesn't be able to spend a lot of time with her. And she just sort of is there and trying to be girlfriend material, but she likes to go out and party a lot and drink, but eventually he just is tired of it. So he kicks her out of their place and she has nowhere to go. So she ends up moving back home in the Midwest somewhere, where she reconnects with an old friend of hers played by Jason Sudeikis, who owns a bar and offers her a job and gets her a place to stay, a house and furniture and stuff. It seems like he's got kind of a little unrequited crush on her a little bit, it seems like. And you think that that's going to be that kind of type of movie where it's going to be one of these little like romantic comedies where like a Hallmark film where Jason Sudeikis is, fun bartender guy, kind, sweet, gentle guy, is going to get the party girl straight and narrow and become a good girlfriend and get a job and change your life, and the two of them are going to get together and married, stuff like that. That's what it looks like it's going to get to. But then it goes off in a completely deranged way, and again a very original and interesting film that just in the end that is a little off kilter for me a little bit. And here's where the weird part is, and this isn't really a spoiler because it actually happens early on in the film. Somehow when Anne Hathaway crosses a certain playground at a certain time, like early in the morning after she's drunk all night and she's walking home from the bar back to the place where she lives, she crosses this playground and she gets home, she crosses the playground and then sort of stands around and does stuff and then moves on and then collapses. And then she wakes up and she turns on the news and sees a giant kaiju, like a Godzilla type of creature, has been attacking like Korea. So it's a big story. And the video that they have of the kaiju attacking it seems kind of familiar to Anne Hathaway's character, and she soon learns that she is somehow, when she crosses that playground at a certain time, is somehow bringing the kaiju to making the kaiju appear in South Korea, and whatever she does in that playground affects South Korea. So once she discovers that, she tries to figure out now the safest route for her to go around so she doesn't kill people and hurt people. But then during one of their videos, a robot sort of thing comes and starts attacking the kaiju. And we soon learn that that's Jason Sudeikis has got that sort of similar power also. And Jason Sudeikis then all of a sudden becomes the bad guy in the movie. It's a bizarre film that I thought was going to be a lot more entertaining than it was, particularly because I love Anne Hathaway so much, and Jason Sudeikis in Ted Lasso is outstanding. But it's just, I don't know. I don't know what it was. There's just something about the movie, again, is a weird, bizarre sort of film. And it's not, doesn't grip me as much to want to go see it multiple times over and over again, like certain other movies have. But again, I feel bad about it because the premise is an original premise and just kind of weird at that. And the ending is wild also. But it's just, it's a darker film than you think it is. When you first see it, you think it's going to be a fun little kaiju versus robot sort of thing, but it takes this really dark turn, and Jason Sudeikis becomes this incredibly awful sort of person. Colossal is an interesting film, but again, it's not one of those that I would necessarily watch again. But if you're looking for something original and different, Unfrosted number 14 and Colossal number 13 are two good ideas if you want to try something different. It's just, for me, there's just something about them that is nagging at me that I'm not the biggest fan of. Number 12, we continue with the Anne Hathaway zone because I love me some Anne Hathaway. And Anne Hathaway will probably pop up on my list for next year because there's a bunch of movies I want to see with her in it that I haven't seen yet, that I have and I will be getting also. But this one is, I told you, the weekend that Unfrosted came out, my family was away for the weekend, and there were a couple of streaming movies that came out that weekend. Unfrosted was one. The other was The Idea of You, number 12, starring Anne Hathaway. And the premise of that is now we're getting to sort of more cliched sort of film ideas. And this cliche is not my favorite, but it's the younger man going for the older lady. Anne Hathaway plays a divorced mother of a teenager, like 15, 16 years old, who at one time was into this boy band. And she's really close to her mom, played by Anne Hathaway. And her dad's trying to get her back in his life, but he's dating this woman who's younger than him. And she's nice enough, but at the same time is kind of annoying. And in order to try to, reconnect with his daughter, he buys her tickets to like Coachella. And this band is going to be there, and he's going to take her to Coachella with her and her friends. But something comes up, and he can't take her. So Anne Hathaway has to. She doesn't want to. She wanted to stay home and do it herself. But she does it because she loves her daughter and her daughter's friends. So they go to Coachella. And even though they're not big fans of the band anymore, it's still Coachella. They have a good time. So they go off and do their own thing. And they're old enough that they can sort of hang out by themselves. So Anne Hathaway just doesn't want to hang out around them. So she goes, explores a little bit, and tries to find a bathroom. And ends up going into a camper or whatever, which one of the lead singers of the band that her daughter used to love and who used to have a crush on him, it's his trailer. And he begins to flirt incessantly with her, and is a little off put by it. But then she's sort of, okay, I must look pretty good, and he's a handsome guy. And so she leaves eventually, and then they go to the concert to see the band, and he mentions the singer who saw her mentions seeing her and says this song is for her. And so they sort of begin this sort of relationship. So the lead singer of this boy band, who's younger, starts to pursue Anne Hathaway's character, who's like an art dealer. And eventually she acquiesces and ends up in a relationship with him. And then you have the younger, older sort of dichotomy going on, and then how her daughter is going to react, how her ex-husband's going to react, and how the public's like a Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift sort of thing, how paparazzi and the people who have been in love with him, who are younger than her, calling her a home wrecker and all this stuff, and just how her life changes and how his changes, and yet they still find attraction to each other. It's I guess, an okay romantic comedy. Not really romantic films, romantic comedies, some drama. There's comedy, some drama aspects to it, but it's light, and it kind of boring after a while, because we know what's going to happen, and just the whole cliches pop up, about, she's feeling bad about dating him, even though she's happier than she's ever been because of the age difference and because of the paparazzi stuff, and his younger friends are calling her name. It's just a whole bunch of whatever. So the idea of You is okay, but again, not one I'm going to see too much again. But it's nice to see Anne Hathaway in a little bit more of a sexual role. It's pretty cool. So number 12 is The Idea of You. Number 11 is The Fog, the original John Carpenter version. I finally saw that. It came out in like 1980 or something like that, but I'd never seen it before that point. And I had been dying to see it, so I saw it the same weekend that I saw Frankenweenie. So Halloween and everything like that. I actually enjoyed it a lot. It's at number 11 because I still enjoy it a lot, but there are 10 other movies I like better, or 9 other movies I like better than that. But The Fog is actually a really decent horror film. The the setting is like this oceanside, beachside town is really, really cool. The town itself has a lot of interesting characters in it, and it's a celebration that they're getting ready to celebrate, like their 100th anniversary of their creation of their town. And the villain is ghost pirates, which is another really cool idea. So a fog rolls in, and ghost pirates come and are able to kill the living because they are here on a task of revenge. And we learned the history of the town. The way the town was created was that a bunch of people, settlers, founded it, and they enjoyed it, they loved it, but it wasn't sustainable because they didn't have a lot of money, and they didn't have the people to do the work for it, and to build stuff up and to keep it running, stuff like that. And then this rich guy comes in and says, I'll give you all the money you need to run this town and make it into a decent town that'll be sustainable. But I have all these lepers for a leper colony. We want to have, since I'm paying for the town, I want to have an area for the lepers so they can get better and be away from society and stuff like that. Well, townspeople, they don't want lepers in their town. So they agree to the rich person's thing, and the rich person goes and gets all the lepers, and they come on a boat. And the townspeople decide that we can't have lepers in our town, but we want the money. So they'll cause the boat to crash and sink, and then they'll go out and they'll steal the money from the boat, because the guy will have the money on the boat. So they set up like a lighthouse or lights too close to the beach so that they think they're have a lot more space than they do, and then it goes aground and it sinks, and everybody on board, the lepers, the rich person, everybody on board dies. The townspeople go out, they grab the money that he had in there, and then they create the town. And that's sort of the dirty little secret of it that not a lot of people know about and here 100 years later. But the spirits of those who died, not necessarily the lepers, but just we call them ghost pirates, but they're just the spirits of the people who died, decide to get their revenge 100 years later. So they need to kill, I think, like 6 people to cover the 6 people who are the ones that planned this whole thing, sort of thing. So they go and they stalk them and kill them. So it's a really interesting film. As I said, the setting is great. The fog is eerie and spooky. The ghost pirates are creepy. It's got Adrienne Barbeau. It's got Jamie Lee Curtis. It's got a good cast in it. And it's another good one from John Carpenter. The Fog is number 11. Number 10 is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I was a huge fan of Ghostbusters Afterlife. It's one of my favorite films. It's one of my comfort films I watch all the time. I love the the new group of Ghostbusters headed by McKenna Grace and the guy from Stranger Things and Lucky and his mom and Paul Rudd. And you even get some of the old Ghostbusters popping back up, all of them, Bill Murray and Danny Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson all pop up, and Annie Potts pops up as well in Afterlife. And it's just a great story, a great film. We learn, and it's an homage to Harold Ramis because he passed away before they could make this film. So it's like an homage to him. And Ivan Reitman produced it. He directed the original Ghostbusters, and his son, Jason Reitman, directed Ghostbusters Afterlife. And very soon after Ghostbusters Afterlife, Ivan Reitman passed away as well. But it's one of my favorite films. I think it's a decent sequel to the Ghostbusters and a good kind of recharge to it, a reboot for the most part. Podcast is great also. He's the other character I was missing. And yeah, the storyline in Afterlife is very similar to some of the other Ghostbuster stories, but it's a whole different bunch of characters and a different perspective. And I love all the characters. So when they announced a sequel, Frozen Empire, it's like, okay, this could be kind of interesting. And starting to see the trailers for it, it kind of looked like it was going to take the real Ghostbusters, the cartoon aspect of, and turn it into film, where they would create a big bad and the Ghostbusters would have to fight it. And in the end, they would beat it. And you also brought back the original Ghostbusters again. And then you even brought back William Atherton, who was Peck, the bad guy from the first Ghostbusters, to come back in to give them more trouble like that. So I thought, okay, this would be great. I saw it in the movie theater. It was good. It was fine, but it was not Afterlife fine. It's not a type of movie that I could probably watch over and over again. There are some good aspects to it. I like McKenna Grace's character's friendship with a female ghost. I like Ernie Hudson, who really got screwed when he joined the cast of Ghostbusters in '84. His character, he got kind of, his character kind of got screwed. And then on top of that, when he tried to audition for the voice of Winston in the real Ghostbusters cartoon, they said it wasn't good enough. So I felt bad for him. But to see Winston be like the guy, the man, in the Ghostbusters was good. I liked Bill Murray's little bit in there, which showed him that he wasn't just the typical sort of game show host character that he played in the original Ghostbusters, and he kind of tried to do a little bit in Afterlife, but it didn't work. In this, he played a real scientist where he was trying to discover a scientific idea, saw something and decided to test it and ended up being correct about it. I think, and I don't want to ruin what that is, but I think that was a great aspect as well. But there are just too many characters involved that a lot of them got short shrifted. The guy from Stranger Things, Finn Wolfhard, I guess is the actor's name. His storyline, which was pretty decent in Afterlife, was boiled down to him having to deal with Slimer in the attic of the Ghostbusters firehouse. So that was kind of about it. Lucky's role was reduced to being someone who was working for Ernie Hudson's Ghostbusters factory group, doing research, stuff like that. And that's interesting for her, but she didn't have a lot to do. And I wish, because I liked her character as well, I wish she would have had a little bit more to do about that. McKenna Grace was still front and center, which as she should be, and her storyline was pretty decent. But then they also threw in the other Ghostbusters and gave them a lot more time, gave Danny Aykroyd a lot more to do, gave Ernie Hudson a lot more to do. And Bill, even though he had that one scene, he comes in later at the end when they're all dressed as Ghostbusters, come back out again. Annie Potts even gets involved with them and being Ghostbusters again. So you have all these characters that need stuff. And then you introduce a new character who is a Indian guy who's trying to sell these relics to make money because he needs money, and discovers that he has a prophecy that concerns him, and he's got a special power. And unfortunately, one of the things he sold releases an evil that he has been trained to fight, but he has no idea how to fight it. So you have this whole character that gets introduced as well. And you give short shrift to all the other characters. Paul Rudd is just doing his Paul Rudd stuff, doesn't do that much. The mom, I forget the name of the actress who plays her. She doesn't really do much as she did in Afterlife. It was the McKenna Grace show, which it should have been. This Indian actor, I forget his name. His storyline took precedence over a lot of everyone else's storylines. And I was like, okay, that's a little much. And then they just sort of introduced the Ghostbusters science group and then barely had them in there. It was just a way to move the story along. It might have been interesting just to see them in their own little movie and try to focus more on the family aspect of it, which is what made Afterlife such a great thing. So Frozen Empire is still good, and it's a fun film, but it's not Afterlife. There's just too much going on, and the bad guy gets kind of defeated pretty easily, considering, like that. It did decent, but didn't do as good as they were hoping it would. But it's still potential could make another one. If they do, I think what they need to do is they just need to focus on the original group. Carrie Coon, that's the actress who plays the mother. The original group, and maybe make Sam Hain be the bad guy. And the original Ghostbusters, Danny can pop up for a scene or two, but doesn't need to be front and center. Bill doesn't even have to show up. And Ernie has to kind of be there, but it doesn't have to be like a major character because he's the guy who's running the ghost thing. But might be nice to see sort of how this group progresses from that and takes on bigger villains. The Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is good, but it's not Afterlife good, and that's why it's number 10. Number 9 is the most recent film I saw, Flow. It's a gorgeously animated film with no dialogue. The main character is a black cat. I just got my Pepper boy, who I think went back upstairs. It's about a black cat who lives in what is best described as kind of a weird post-apocalyptic world that doesn't quite look like Earth. There are aspects that look like Earth because it's a black cat, and there's dogs, and there's rivers, and there's stone formations, and there's woods, and there's houses. But it looks like it's a video game world or a dystopian world where where the planet is flooding, and the animals have to get to safety. So it follows a black cat who's trying to live on his own and runs afoul of a pack of dogs, one of whom has an interest in the black cat to be friends with them. And then the ocean starts to rise, and they need to get to high ground. And the cat is just right about be overwhelmed by the water when he sees a boat, gets over to the boat and sees a wallaby in the boat, and the boat just starts floating down the water. And then other animals start joining them. What do you call it? I don't want to say meerkat, but it's I like to move it. I like to move it. Sort of monkey comes in, and then there's a crane, and one of the dog that's been interested in the black cat joins them as well. And then the other dogs join them, and it's just done without any dialogue. They talk in their animal noises. And they're able to maneuver the boat themselves. They kind of know where they need to go. They have to learn how to survive and get along with each other because they're all different. It's a gorgeous film, but it's a lot of stuff put together, and then the ending gets a little crazy where they come upon a land that just grows up out of the water, and I thought that they might have been dead and this was like a purgatory thing, but that's not exactly quite the story. They have a weird looking whale involved with it, but the animation's gorgeous. The story is interesting with animals, there's no humans, there's no singing, there's no talking animals. They use their own animal voices, and by what they do and their looks and the noises they make, you can tell what they're kind of saying and doing and learning about. And it's a gorgeous film, but what makes it interesting is that there are characters that you dislike like you do in any other movie. In a lot of movies, there's characters that you absolutely hate. And there are ones that I hate the pack of dogs, except for the one that hangs out with them for the most part. I hate them because and you're supposed to, because they're the ones that cause most of the trouble. The crane, even though he's trying to help the bird, the crane is kind of a bitch also. You can understand because he gets kicked out of his tribe or whatever. But it's a wild film. It's very short, so it's probably, I wouldn't mind watching it again, and maybe showing my family, because it's a gorgeously animated film. And again, there is no singing, no dancing, no talking animals, no humans. It's in a weird dreamlike post-apocalyptic / video game kind of world where it is starting to get overflowed with water and just all these weird creations, giant cat statues and weird rock formations. And the whale doesn't look quite right either. It looks like almost like it takes place on another planet. But the dog and the wallaby and the cats and the birds and the meerkat or whatever it is, I can't think that the I like to move it monkey that's in it as well, are the animals you see on Earth. So it's just one of these little, just bizarre, almost dreamlike sort of storylines. And that's what kind of makes it cool. But at the same time, it's kind of frustrating, particularly when the ending happens and it just sort of ends and you're not exactly sure what's going on. Still enjoyable. Still gorgeous. It will be nominated for an Oscar for Best Animated Film. Probably won't win, but it absolutely is a really gorgeous film, and it's really nice. That's number 9. Number 8 this is the year I got my first male crush in a while. Glenn Powell. On the surface, looks like a typical dude bro sort of type of person, and he sort of portrays that role a little bit, but then you dig a little bit deeper into his character, and he actually develops into a more interesting character. He's a decent romantic comedy lead, as this movie and another one later on the list will go to show you. But this is my first interaction with Glenn Powell, who is a Richard Linklater buddy, and I love Richard Linklater. And this is Richard Linklater's Hitman. Number 8. Debuted on Netflix in June, I believe. And the story follows Glenn Powell as a school teacher, typical nerdy sort of school teacher. And on the side, he works for the police department, where he researches people and tries to set up meetings with hit people, and their undercover operative who goes in and has someone who as a hitman, and someone they pretend to be hitman, and someone calls them to say they want to kill somebody. And so, they come meet and talk about it. So they send the undercover police officer in to pretend to be a hitman, get the person who wants to hire him to kill somebody to admit he wants him to get killed and who it is. and the reason for it, and then takes his money and then arrests him for attempted murder. It's a way to clean up the streets of people who just want to kill people. But when something happens to the undercover officer, he gets, I think he has a police brutality sequence where he gets in trouble with the law and has to be suspended, but they can't ignore their they need to keep doing this to start taking more and more people off. So Glenn Powell gets tapped to be the undercover operative, even though he doesn't do anything with that. He's been the guy that sets up the phone lines and tries to set up the people and gets the information to the undercover officer so they know what they're doing. So now he has to pretend to be a hitman to get these people to confess to wanting to kill somebody, and then they can arrest them. So everyone thinks that he's not capable to it. He doesn't think he's going to be capable to do it. But all of a sudden, he just like dips into this ability where he becomes a fantastic hitman, where he studies the mark that they're trying to get and see what the type of hitman he should be, and changes his appearance to fit the type of hitman that he thinks that this person would want. So eventually he does a very successful job, takes it down a lot of people. But then one of the jobs he has to deal with is he's dealing with a gorgeous woman who wants to kill her abusive ex-boyfriend, I think, or something like that. And he becomes enamored with her, obviously, because it's a romantic comedy. And eventually, instead of arresting her about trying to hire him to kill her ex-boyfriend, convinces her just to leave him and not try to kill him and not get in trouble so that she won't go to jail. Now, people don't like that, but not much he can do about it. He just wants her to be safe. And so she does, and then eventually meets up with him, and they start a relationship, and then that's when everything goes downhill. Hitman's a fun film, a great romantic comedy. It's like it's a romantic comedy if the Coen brothers made a romantic comedy. It's got sort of that Coen brothers sort of sensibility, but it also does have, typical romantic comedy cliches, but it also has a little bit of a dark edge to it, which makes it a more interesting film. And as I said, it makes it like a Coen brothers romantic comedy. Glenn Powell's fantastic. The female lead, I don't know the actress name right now, and I'm not going to go into detail with that right now because I just don't feel like it. Is great as well. Richard Linklater is one of my favorite directors, and he does a very good job of directing the film. Has a good supporting cast around Glenn Powell. And the film is very entertaining. And as I said, I called it a Coen brothers romantic comedy. The ending spirals into a not the best ending to a romantic comedy. It's a little bit too dark and not sure where things are going to go, keeping things sort of open-ended. But it's intriguing enough, and it's a fun enough film, and Glenn Powell is phenomenal in it, and the female lead is absolutely stunningly gorgeous, and it's a great foil for him, and they have good chemistry. As you know, I've been in an Anne Hathaway mode, and I'm in an Anne Hathaway mode again. This is her third appearance on the list, and she still has one more to go. Number 7 is The Intern, which is a Nancy Meyers film. Nancy Meyers started her career when she was married to Charles Shire. They were a writing team, and Charles Shire directed The Father of the Bride movies, Baby Boom, Private Benjamin, a few others. And then they got divorced, and then Nancy Meyers wanted to get out on her own and do her own stuff. Her first movie she directed was the Lindsay Lohan Parent Trap remake, which is excellent film. And Nancy Meyers has gone on to make a ton of great films after that, including The Intern. The Intern stars Anne Hathaway and Robert De Niro. And basically, Anne Hathaway runs a modern 20 it's like a 20, I think the movie came out 2015, 2016, something like that, like a mid 21st century sort of web company that deals with, I think they make clothing, or they order clothes or for weddings and stuff like that. And it's a hugely popular website, and they make a lot of money. And Anne Hathaway is overworked. She's the one who runs the company, and she works like 90 hours a week. And she's married and has a kid. Her husband's stay-at-home dad, because she makes so much money and because she needs to be at the office so much. But she's barely around for him and their daughter. So he's beginning to get a little antsy, and he starts to have like an affair with somebody because he doesn't feel like that he's getting the attention he deserves, because he's doing all this stuff for her. And, she knows he loves him, but it's frustrating that he never sees her, and she never takes time off because she's trying so hard to keep this company floating and running. And one of her employees comes up with the idea for why don't we do a middle-aged intern job where we hire retirees who aren't quite ready to just give up and go fishing and golfing and just hanging out the house. They still kind of want to work like part-time on the side, whatever, need to get out and meet people and stuff like that. So Anne Hathaway says, okay, let's go ahead and give it a try, though she's not really paying much attention to it. She's too busy running the company. So they do. And Robert De Niro is one of the people that signs up for the intern job and gets hired to be her intern, Anne Hathaway's intern. She doesn't need an intern, even though everybody thinks she does, because she overworks herself. And she refuses to allow him to help her because she's got to do everything herself. But eventually he starts, working his way, meeting all the people, becoming friendly with all the people in there, learning how the company works, getting on social media, learning how that works, starts flirting with a massage therapist, played by, this is the one I need to know because she's a great actress. She was in, she played Thor's mother, and was in the Renee Russo, who's great. And socialization with her, and then eventually he's able to break down Anne Hathaway's walls and becomes her real, instead of an intern, becomes more of her assistant. He drives her places, helps her, as a sounding board, and she starts to loosen up a little bit around him and starts telling him more about her personal life and how things are going. And he gets kind of involved with it, but he's never overbearing. He's never, and it's not a horror film. It is a sweet comedy. And De Niro plays a sweet guy who just wants to help bring Anne Hathaway, get her back to, something more than just living, running the business, living life with her family and stuff like that. So it's a wonderful, sweet film that again has some issues with it, particularly when Anne Hathaway discovers that her husband's having an affair, and also how she's starting to think about how people think that she's overworking herself and that she needs to have someone come in and maybe take over a lot of the running so that she still makes a lot of money, but is not like in charge anymore. And she's not sure she wants to do that. And again, uses Robert De Niro as a sounding board, stuff like that. It's a sweet little film between two great people who form a connection. It's almost father-daughter like, which is really great. And De Niro's fantastic. Renee Russo's fantastic. And Anne Hathaway is stunningly gorgeous as always, and is perfectly Anne Hathaway in this. And Nancy Meyers is a phenomenal writer director, so she does a great job. The Intern is number 7. Well worth it. Number 6, the boys aren't watching anymore, but the two people who were watching earlier were my son and his best friend. They found my show, and he subscribed to my show, so that's great. They're not watching anymore. They're playing Fortnite now, but we went and saw Godzilla v. Kong: New Kingdom, which is a sequel to Godzilla v. Kong, part of the MonsterVerse. It's the American version of Godzilla. That's my number 6. We saw that on Good Friday, and I took the two of them with me because they've been dying to see it, and I wanted to see it because the Godzilla MonsterVerse consists of Godzilla, Godzilla King of Monsters, Godzilla v Kong, and then this one. And then there's a TV show also that Kurt Russell did as well. And it's a great storyline that has spanned. It's a great Godzilla series, and you see recurring characters, and so it is a franchise, and it's hugely successful. This one, particularly Godzilla v Kong, New Kingdom, did phenomenal at the box office. And there's going to be another one coming out in a few years, so we'll be excited to see that. I think a lot of that to do is Godzilla -1 had a lot more people interested in seeing Godzilla. So when this came out, they said, why don't we get caught up on the MonsterVerse stuff? And then they decided that they kind of like how this is done too. It's different than the Japanese ones. The American MonsterVerse is a little bit different. There's a different sort of storyline where the kaiju are titans that have ruled the earth forever and have been in hibernation, but have slowly started to come back around. So there's all these kaiju all over the world, and these people have set up bases around these kaiju to study them and make sure how to live freely with them. And then, of course, all hell breaks loose when bad guys happen and people try to control the kaiju and stuff like that. Millie Bobby Brown was in a couple of these. She's no longer doing it, obviously, because she's too big of a star right now. Elizabeth Olsen and Aaron Taylor Johnson were in the original Godzilla with Bryan Cranston, which is my least favorite because the director had no idea how to make a film. Couldn't see it. It was shot entirely in the dark. Everything was shot in the dark. You could barely see what was going on. It was annoying as hell. But the ones since then have been pretty good. Nothing, not Shakespeare, nothing great. But Godzilla v Kong New Kingdom, the one that came out this year, is actually probably my favorite because the human aspect, which has always been a big part of the MonsterVerse storyline, is not as prevalent in this one. And that's good because the storyline is okay, but the humans just are annoying somewhat. And they are still kind of somewhat annoying in this one, but they're not in it as much. And you get to focus more on the kaiju and the stuff that they do. This movie particularly focused more on Kong, as he thought he was the only one left, but discovers a whole lost world where other members of his species are, but they are being ruled by a slave driving Kong type who has a kaiju like Godzilla creature that he abuses to control them. So Kong is able to escape and needs Godzilla's help to overthrow this guy. And so Godzilla unwillingly does it, but does so. And it then becomes a buddy action film with the last 15, 20 minutes of the movie just being a massive kaiju battle without any humans involved. It's phenomenal. It's a lot of fun. And that's the most thing. It's a lot of fun. This one is probably the shortest of all the ones we've seen. It's a lot of fun. It's very successful. And it's a good series. And we've watched multiple times, but this was the first time I'd seen Godzilla v Kong New Kingdom. We saw it in the movie theater, then we got it on Blu-ray, and we watched it again with the family. And my son will probably want to watch it again eventually because he really enjoyed it. Number 5 is Deadpool Wolverine, the only MCU movie, but it's not really an MCU movie. I liked the movie because it was great to see. I forgot Deadpool 2 was in this list as well. We'll make Deadpool 2 my honorable mention. I forgot about that. So my honorable mention is Deadpool 2. Or actually, I just put it on here. So Deadpool Wolverine / Deadpool 2. Because I forgot about that one. I knew this one I forgot about. So number 5 is Deadpool in general. So I had seen the original Deadpool and enjoyed it. It was okay. I liked it. And then I just didn't see the sequel. And then when Deadpool Wolverine was announced and they were going to do more multiverse stuff and get Deadpool into the MCU, which didn't really happen. And then they want to get Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine, and they did. And then when they started talking about the film being a, you know, the multiverse sort of thing, we got to see the Fox multiverse in here. We got to see Chris Owens play his Human Torch role, who was great in that. You get to see Wesley Snipes as Blade, Jennifer Garner as Elektra. You finally get to see what's his face play Gambit for the first time. You have a decent villain in this one. And you have a connection to the MCU with the TVA and some of the characters from the Loki TV series in there as well. And then you have all the Deadpool variants that come in at the end, which are interesting. Particularly, you get Ryan Reynolds' wife, Blake Lively, and their children, and you get the voice of Matthew McConaughey and Bryan Cranston and all this stuff as well. So you've got a lot of fun stuff going on. It's just the supporting cast that had helped Deadpool and Deadpool 2 be fairly successful disappears. They appear at the beginning of the movie and then at the end. That's it. The majority of the film takes place in the multiverse with Deadpool and Wolverine trying to save the multiverse. There's an extended fight scene in a car that went on a little too long for my tastes. And the opening sequence with Deadpool dancing to Bye 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 is overplayed and is okay, but I didn't think it was like the greatest thing in the world, but everybody made it seem like it was a great thing. And it was fun, it was interesting. It was good, it was good, but I think I like Deadpool 2 a little bit better. I'm so mad at myself I didn't put it on the list, so I'll just keep it number 5 because it's a good spot for it. Deadpool 2 is great because you get to see continuation from Deadpool originally, but unfortunately they kill off Marina Baccarin early on because she's sexy as fuck, and then they had her disappear so that way he can get on with his life. But then he teams up with the X-Men, creates his own X-Force, and one of the funniest scenes where you get a bunch of cameos coming in for an X-Force team, and they all die except for Domino, who's phenomenal in this. And you get Josh Brolin as Cable, who comes in. It's great. You get a Juggernaut in this as well, and a kid who's just getting his mutant abilities and wants to have friends, stuff like that, but it's hard to make friends, stuff like that. You can kind of see where the story goes with that, and Cable comes back from the future to kill this kid because this kid is going to be the death of mutants. And Josh Brolin is fantastic as Cable. I love the actress who played Domino, and Deadpool is pretty decent in this as well. And again, some of the supporting cast, the X-Men get a lot more short shrift in this because it's more of a Deadpool, Cable, Domino movie. But Colossus still makes a good appearance in Negasonic, Warhead, and forget the Japanese woman. They get some appearances, but nothing major. The X-Force scene alone is a great one as well. So Deadpool Wolverine is decent. I enjoy it. It's a great film. I want to watch it again. It is a fun film. If you just want a brainless sort of thing. And as I said, it's a lot of fun, but it's not. He doesn't save the MCU. He is part of the MCU, but he's not. He goes back to his dimension that is not part of the MCU, but he has ways to go to the MCU if need be. And there was teased a little bit that he's going to pop up in Secret Wars or Doomsday as well. That's rumored to be. There's also a rumor that there's going to be another Wolverine Deadpool movie because it was so successful. And it was good to see Hugh Jackman come back as Wolverine. It was fun. It's a great fun movie. It's exactly what you expect from a Deadpool Wolverine movie. As I said, I think the fight scene in the car went a little bit too long. But I did like the villain was fantastic, and I like the rogue version of the TVA, and the cameos were pretty good also. So Deadpool Wolverine / Deadpool 2 is my number 5. Number 4 is I saw this movie already. It's not a new movie for me, but I never saw it in the movie theater. And when they announced it was going to be released for its 10th anniversary into movie theaters and then put into IMAX, it's a type of movie that screams that it has to be in IMAX. So I had to go see it, and when it's supposed to come out, it wasn't playing anywhere near me, so I was depressed. But then I checked a week later, and it was after it was successful for its first week. Then a couple of the IMAX places picked it up, and I was able to go see it. It's Interstellar's 10th anniversary edition in IMAX. Another Anne Hathaway movie, her fourth on the list. Right, 1, 2, 3. Yep, her fourth on the list. And Matthew McConaughey, Christopher Nolan directs. Matt Damon's in it. Michael Caine, John Lithgow, Timothy Chalamet, Jessica Chastain, Casey Affleck. Fun stuff like that. But it's a great film. I love Interstellar. It's one of my favorite films of all time, and it deserves to be seen in IMAX because of the shots that Nolan uses of the different planets that the astronauts visit, and just the vastness of space, the vastness of the farms on Earth, the space stations, the planets, just everything. It just the black hole, everything in general. It deserved to be seen in IMAX. And when it came out 10 years ago, I don't think it was in IMAX, so they had to reformat it for it and show it. And it made it. It's the most money a IMAX re-release has made in history. It's gorgeous. I can't really go. Not much more I can say about how great the movie is. Spectacular. Hearing Hans Zimmer's score brought some tears to my eyes, particularly Cornfield Chase, which is phenomenal. Just the vastness of the movie, the gorgeous shots and the sceneries and the planets and also it's just it and the black hole all deserve to be seen in IMAX. And definitely, if it's still out there, I don't know if it still is, definitely check out Interstellar 10th Anniversary IMAX at number 4. Number 3 brings about my first experience with the luscious Sydney Sweeney. She's done a lot of work before then, but this was the first real kind of romantic comedy for her to be in, and introduced me to Mr. Glenn Powell. And it's number 3 is Anyone But You, a fantastic romantic comedy, sexy adult romantic comedy that is also frustrating to a point because of the romantic comedy cliches that we get. But to be expected from a romantic comedy, you need to have sort of this cliche stuff anyway. Premise of it is Sydney Sweeney plays a student who's going to be studying to be a lawyer. She just broke up with her long-term boyfriend and is looking to just sort of, sow her oats a little bit and go out there. And she meets Glenn Powell, who's older than her, but not by much, by about 5 years, at a coffee shop where he offers to help her. She has to go to the bathroom, and they're being very strict about only letting customers use the bathroom. So she says, "Okay, fine, I'll order something." But the cafe is like, you got to wait in line before you order anything, before you use the bathroom, blah, blah, blah. But Glenn Powell just happens to be close to the line, says, "I'll order for you, baby," pretending to be her boyfriend. You go use the bathroom. So, of course, they use that. And so he pretends to be her boyfriend to get her to go to the bathroom. And then she comes out, and they take their coffee out, and they go for a nice little walk, have a good walk around town, talk, and just get to know each other. And it's kind of exciting and nice how when you first get into a relationship, how that is. And you get into that. And then they go back to his place. They have something to eat, and then they just keep talking. They don't have sex or anything. Then they fall asleep together. And then Sydney Sweeney's kind of confused by what's going on. So she gets up and leaves without saying goodbye to him. and that hurts him a little bit. But then she realizes that that's stupid. Let me go back, and I had a great time, and I want to be with this guy a little bit more. And she goes back, and a buddy of his just happens to show up, and before she shows up, and she secretly hears him say that, he does, just another typical woman. He's always got, continuing to put, um, ticks in his wall about all the women he's hitting on, stuff like that. So she's pissed because she thinks that he's just a dude bro. He's pissed at her because she left without saying goodbye. And so they don't see each other for like 6 months. Now, the best friend who came in and talked to him in that scene, turns out that his sister, who's a lesbian, is dating Sydney Sweeney's sister, who's also a lesbian. So the two of them are together, and she ends up, hanging out with Glen Powell's friend, and they're going to become family because they announced they're going to get married in Australia, because I think Glen Powell's friend is from there. And everybody is going to be invited to go to the destination wedding between the girlfriends, Sydney Sweeney's sister and Glen Powell's friend's sister. So of course they're all invited. So they meet at like a pre-wedding party in a bar real quick, and the two of them start just ridiculing each other and stuff like that. And everyone's like, "Oh God, they're gonna have to be in the wedding together," and this pure hatred for each other. It just can't be. It is a kind of an updated version of what's the Shakespearean play that it is based on? Much Ado About Nothing. It's kind of a loose interpretation of Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing. So they end up going to Australia, where their animosity towards each other, Glen Powell and Sydney Sweeney, starts to percolate even more and threaten to dismantle the wedding between Sydney Sweeney's sister and the girl who's his best friend's sister, but is like his sister also. So they kind of know what the story is. So they say if the two of them can get together, get them to fall in love together, keep them together, maybe they'll fall in love together, then everything will be hunky-dory and everything will be good. They overhear this and they realize they haven't been playing really well. So they make they decide to come up with a plot together. They say, okay, to make sure that this wedding goes off without a hitch and we don't want to ruin their wedding, let's pretend that we have fallen in love with each other and we're starting to date. That way, we can just pretend we're dating. We can put our animosity away just for the wedding, get through the wedding, and then we can go back to hating each other. They agree on it, and so they have to pretend to be, just starting to date again. And the family's like, okay, this is good. And then things just spiral from there. It's a fun, sexy, really interesting romantic comedy, and it's we haven't had a really decent romantic comedy in a while. It was a huge hit, came out in December of 2023, and I didn't see it till it was out on video in February, I think is when I saw it for the first time. As I said, it was my first real look at Sydney Sweeney, and she's one of my crushes now. 51, almost 52-year-old man could have crushes still. I have Anne Hathaway and I have Sydney Sweeney now. She's absolutely stunningly gorgeous, but she's also a pretty damn good actress, and she's making her choices where she has no problem being naked and doing sexual stuff, but she's also trying new things with acting. She's doing presently, I think she's filming where she had to turn herself into a boxer. So she, not putting the makeup on, building up her muscle, and becoming more a little butch. And some photos of her doing that without the makeup and without the clothing and the cleavage and stuff like that. All the people who have been lusting after her all of a sudden say, I can't believe, she can't act, she's ugly, so on and so forth. And then she comes out, it was just, once she's done filming or whatever, and she's back to her normal self, and she stuns by showing sort of a topless sort of picture to say, hey, you guys, I haven't forgotten you guys have insulted me, but she's trying to do a little bit of acting there. She had a year. This year was her year. She did Anyone But You. Then she did she did Madam Web, which tanked, but it was, she was fairly well known for that. She did the horror movie where she was a nun that got pregnant without having sex. And then, so she had a bunch of those movies. She just did a film called Eden with Ron Howard, with Anna de Armas, which is set to debut next year, which I think I want to go see, which is more showing her range. Her boxing movie should be out next year also, probably. She's set to star in a couple other stuff. There's a Housemaid movie based on a book that's due to come out Christmas of 2025 that hasn't filmed yet. But she's got that. So she's been, and then she's producing also. She produced Anyone But You. She's producing a remake of Barbarella, which I would love to see her do. She's trying to get Edgar Wright to direct it, but he's basically directing her co-star, Glenn Powell, in The Running Man right now. So that's coming out next year also. So we'll see. And she's got a whole bunch of them there, but she's stunningly gorgeous. And I can understand that most people, when they just see her, she's very sexual in her pictures, very much cleavage, very revealing stuff. She's not shy about doing nudity. She's in Euphoria, which has been winning all kinds of Emmys, and Zendaya particularly has won a lot of those. But Sydney Sweeney's in that as well, and it's a dramatic sort of role. She does a lot more of the sexual stuff and nudity than Zendaya does, but she still has a dramatic role she has to portray there. She's got that new season coming up she's going to be working on too. In this film, there's a little nudity near the end. There's also a couple love scenes, but in the end, it is a great 21st century romantic comedy with a couple that has extraordinarily steaming hot chemistry. Sydney Sweeney is absolutely stunningly gorgeous. I've already talked to you about how Glenn Powell is one of my male crushes now too. He's phenomenal. And he starts off as a dude bro, but you see a lot more of his side to him in this movie that makes him a little bit more vulnerable, and it's outstanding. Anyone But You is number 3. Number 2 is We Live in Time. This is still the best movie I saw in the movie theaters this year. Florence Pugh, Andrew Garfield have smoking hot chemistry. And I want to see them in another movie real quick. It's a British sort of film. It was released in America first. I guess A24 decided to release it in America first. It is going to hit the UK on January 1st. And I think it's going to make a shit ton of money in the UK, as it should. It did okay over here. I had a problem with what A24 was doing. I think if they would have released the movie wider and not in this tiered weekly arrival thing, I think it would have made a whole lot more money because it would have gotten really good word of mouth. It might have even gotten some Oscar nominations. It might have been, considered to be one of the top films of the year critically. But it barely made a dent. It made close to maybe $20 million, which is good for A24. But it didn't get any Oscar buzz, despite the fact that Florence Pugh absolutely deserves one. Andrew Garfield probably should get one for Best Supporting Actor. And the film is great, and it's a good script, and it's great directing, and deserves all the kudos it should get. It ain't going to get it here in America because it is a British film. So I'm hoping that when it releases in the UK on January 1st, and Andrew and Florence have been doing press for it recently, that it's going to make a shit ton of money in the UK, and it's going to get nominated like crazy in the BAFTAs, even though that might not be maybe till next year. I'm not exactly sure how the BAFTAs work when their cutoffs are. So it's the British Academy Awards. So we'll see what happens. But We Live in Time is such a great movie. It's on Prime now, so I plan on watching it again. And I don't think it's. Let me check Amazon. I mean, Saturday Night came out around the same time. I don't think it's going to be out yet because it does have to go through UK. Oh, there is a Blu-ray. It's due out on the 23rd. All right. Wait a second. It says it's going to. I'll pre-order this now, actually. I might cancel this, but that's weird. It's supposed to come out on January 7th, but I'm not going to get it till the 23rd. That doesn't make any sense. So what I'll do is I'll check back on the 7th to see if they have it, because I've done the pre-orders before and they never show up. So I'm just going to put that in there. So I'll put that in there. So we'll check that again next week after January 7th to see if it's there and probably buy it then. So that's good. Good to see that also. But it is on Prime right now, so I can get that. I can watch it now on Prime if I wanted to. But it's not told in order. It's told out of order, and it's fairly easy to follow. The basic premise is Andrew Garfield is a divorced man with no children. He was married and got divorced, who works for Weetabix, which is a cereal company. And after he signs his divorce papers, he needs to go out and actually get a pen because all his pens don't work. He has to sign the divorce papers. So he goes out to a local, 7-Eleven sort of place in England, gets a pen, and as he's get ready to cross the street back to his hotel room, he drops his pen, bends over and gets it, and gets hit by a car. He wakes up in a neck brace across from Florence Pugh's character, who is the one that hit him, and she is a chef who's head chef at a new restaurant opening up. So that's kind of their meet cute moment. They go out to eat, and she invites him to a dinner at her restaurant once he's well enough. So he accepts and goes by himself, and she thinks that he's still married or whatever. But when he says he's divorced, she gets really, really intrigued by him, and they end up going home together and end up, I think, they have sex. And then they wake up the next morning, and he says that he should probably go, but she's like, why? And do you have something to do? And he's like, no, I really don't. And it's like, neither do I. So they spend the day together and then have sex again and end up in a relationship. But then it doesn't, in romantic comedy fashion, romantic drama fashion, something happens, they sort of split up, but then he comes back, gets it straight, they get together and spend all their time together. And support each other and stuff like that. And then they decide that they want to have children. They're not married yet. They decide they want to have children. So they keep trying, but she doesn't get pregnant. And eventually she does. And they have a baby girl. But we also learn eventually that Florence's character has ovarian cancer. And she was lucky enough to have her baby, but the cancer's getting stronger and it's affecting her even more. So she starts taking some chemo's, got to shave her head and stuff like that. And, she's worried that, she's not going to be, she's going to upset. She's going to not see her family and not survive to see her family. And also she's going to be forgotten because she's so young and dying like that. So she's trying everything she can to not be forgotten, which in turn is hurting her family. And they have to try to reconnect after that. It ends. It's a very sad ending as expected. makes you cry a little bit, but the film itself, Andrew and Florence have amazing chemistry together. It's funny, it's sexy. There's nudity, sex scenes. You can see Andrew Garfield's ass. But the best part of it is that this is a normal couple. It's not. There's nothing. The bit where they have a little bit of a spat where they might break up is a little bit forced to me, I think. But I guess in the context of stuff, it makes sense. But it's a normal couple, and dealing with normal issues that couples, deal with. They're going to have, fights, and they're going to have disagreements, but they're also going to have a lot of love for each other. And this Andrew and Florence just together, it's something just so magical about them. We Live in Time is such a great movie. Is my favorite movie that I saw in the movie theaters. Deserves more Oscar love than it's going to get. It's not going to get any Oscar love, which is a shame. Deserve to have a better distribution of the film instead of only about like 1,000 film theaters eventually. I don't think you've got that high. It might have been only maybe 500, 700 theaters released it. It should have gotten at least a 1,000 to 2,000 theater thing. Probably could have made a lot of money because Florence and Andrew are not unknown actors. They are both in comic book movies, and they are both. And when you see the chemistry between them, it's a word of mouth sort of thing to try to get in there. Yes, it's a depressing sort of kind of movie, but it also has a lot of love and happiness and cheer and stuff like that. It is such a great movie, and a lot of people, maybe the out of sequence stuff might throw some people. It's not really that hard. You see, I don't exactly quite know the reasoning to do it out of order. Much like with Pulp Fiction, I don't know why that was done that way, but it's easy to follow where the story is and what time frame you're in, depend upon what they're wearing, where they're living, if they have a kid, if they don't have a kid, if she's pregnant, if she's not pregnant, if she has short hair, if she doesn't. And they do a really good job of making it easy to understand all the time jumps and the flash forwards and the flashbacks, stuff like that. We Live in Time is a phenomenal movie. It's great. One of my favorite of all time movies. Absolutely love it. And hopefully I'll be able to work out this issue with the DVD. I mean, it says it's due out on the 7th, but I wouldn't get it till the 23rd. Are you freaking kidding me? Fuck that shit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait till it actually gets released, and then I'll order it, and it'll come like 2 days later. So I can watch it on Prime till then. You can watch it on Prime now too, unless you live in England. If you live in England or the UK and you're watching this, go to the movie theater and watch. I'm going to say that on January 1st. I'm like, go see this movie in the movie theaters. All my friends in England, go see this movie in the UK, I should say, because it's not just England. See this movie. It is well worth it, and I'm going to push this movie forever because I love it so much. It is such a great movie, and Andrew and Florence together is phenomenal, and I want them in a whole bunch of movies together here really soon because they are so good together. The film does have sex and nudity in it, but it also has a lot of heart. Will make you cry a little bit. Has drama, has comedy, has love, has anger, and it's just a well done movie. Now you're all wondering, why didn't I make it number one then if it's so good? Well, the reason is because the one movie that I saw this year that has had a major effect on me, I mean, We Live in Time has had a good effect on me, but it's still fairly new, came out in October, is a movie that came out back in 2005, I believe, which might actually be, I could do a 20 films of 2005, if that is indeed when it came out. It'll probably be number one, but I'll have to check that. It's a film that came out at the beginning of the century from DreamWorks, of all places. It's a romantic comedy with two unexpected romantic leads. And the story is because you get a general idea with romantic comedies what you're going to get. This is a different take on the romantic comedy, a different scenario that really has never been seen before. And you just sort of have to settle back in, Don't think about it too much, and just watch and enjoy this movie. It is a movie that when I first saw it in February, I I saw a trailer for it. I thought this is a great film. I never saw it before. I bought the DVD. I watched it the minute I got it, and I fell in love with the movie the instant that it was over. I wanted to watch it again, so I did. I've watched it, I think, a total of this year alone about 10 times. It's one of my new comfort films. Whenever I'm bored and I just want to watch something that's very quick, it's not a long movie, something that's very well done, is a lot of fun, makes me feel good. Um, I watched this a lot during my recovery from my kidney stones I had this year. I know I'm building it up, but my number one movie that I watched this year is a romantic comedy, Just Like Heaven. Reese Witherspoon, Mark Ruffalo. I don't know where to start. It is a lovely film. Bill Hader, who played Napoleon Dynamite, also has a great role in this as well. This is what it's set in San Francisco, and I call it. It's part of the magical San Francisco films. San Francisco is portrayed in films in a lot of instances as sort of a magical place. Princess Diaries took place. There's my Anne Hathaway theme again. Took place in San Francisco, where a young, ugly duckling discovers she's a princess and learns a valuable lesson from her grandmother. That's not really magical, but it's kind of a nice thing to do. Heart and Souls, a great Robert Downey, underrated romantic comedy, Robert Downey Jr. film from the early 90s about a boy who he's born the same time that 4 people die in a bus accident caused by the father trying to go to the hospital, and 4 ghosts attach themselves to the boy and become his surrogate family. But then when it starts disrupting his life as a young kid and his parents get concerned with him because they can't see the ghosts, but he can, and they're like his best friends and his family, they have to leave him even though they can't stand it because they love him. And he turns into hard driving Robert Downey Jr. 30 some years later, and they're still attached to him and having a miserable time because he's such a dick. And then they discover that they need to use his body to move on to heaven. And that's a magical San Francisco movie. The Percy Jackson Sea of Monsters, the new series will be out in 2025. San Francisco is a big part of that. That's also a magical aspect there. So Just Like Heaven takes place in San Francisco. And Reese Witherspoon is a doctor who is attempting to get a residency at the San Francisco hospital. Her sister lives in San Francisco with her nieces. And she wants to stay in San Francisco. She loves it. But she is a hard-driving, hard-working doctor who works 24, 28 hours in the ER to try to impress the higher-ups to see that she could do a residency, but also to prove that she's capable of doing this to herself. And she has a male rival who's trying to get the same residency, who's kind of a dick about it. But she's been putting her life on hold to try to get this residency. So she's been working her, as I said, 28 hours a day, and would probably still work if she wasn't ordered to go home. But she gets word that she has won the residency. So she will be a resident at that hospital. So she wants to celebrate. Her sister has set her up on a blind date, and they're having dinner at their house. So she says, "Why don't you come? We'll party. We'll celebrate your residency." And Reese is like, "I'll do it." She gets in the car. She heads over to her sister's house. It's a rainy night though, and she's she's like putting a CD in or something like that. She runs into a truck. And we don't know what happens to her. So then it flash forwards. So we don't even know how long it flash forwards to. And then we see Mark Ruffalo checking out different hotels, different apartments. Not hotels, different apartments. He's apparently moving in there. He's not very happy. He's trying to find the right apartment for him. And something draws him to this specific apartment. And he ends up deciding to lease the apartment. And he's hard drinker, doesn't just lays around the house, doesn't do any work. We learn later on that he lost his wife to a brain sort of hemorrhage sort of thing a couple years ago, and he hasn't gotten over the fact that he lost his wife. So he sort of quit his job as a landscape artist and is making a lot of money. It just sort of is just going through the paces. A friend of his who is a shrink is trying to get him out to the world to meet people and start going out on dates and living life again. Anyway, one day when Mark Ruffalo's in this apartment, he's just sort of drinking. He discovers a woman played by Reese Witherspoon, who we've met earlier in the film, screaming at him about him being in her apartment. And then she disappears. And Mark Ruffalo thinks he's going crazy because he's been drinking a lot. And he keeps seeing her and she's yelling at him and thinking that, he's homeless and what are you doing in her house and her apartment. He's like, this isn't your apartment, this is my apartment. And they go on and back and forth. And then she disappears again. And so Mark Ruffalo believes he's going crazy. So he talks to a shrink friend and shrink friend tries to help him out. So eventually he goes back to the apartment again and then fully discovers kind of what happened because he calls his realtor who says that the family who's leasing him the apartment, it's a month-to-month lease because there was a family accident and they don't know what's going to happen with that. So it comes out that he is leasing Reese Witherspoon's apartment from her family, and Reese Witherspoon's ghost is popping up in there, not knowing she's a ghost. So Mark Ruffalo starts to dot the lines and goes to an occult bookstore run by Bill Hader, who talks to him about how to see spirits and talk to them. And is he able to make contact with Reese Witherspoon's character and tries to convince her that she doesn't belong there. And she doesn't remember who she is, except that she lived in that apartment. So eventually he is sort of forced into helping her figure out who she is. And so he starts, trying to unravel the mystery of who she is and who she was and what happened to her. And during the process of that, they begin to kind of get interested in each other. And that's about all I think I'm going to tell you because I don't want to ruin what happens. But so it's kind of like, so Mark Ruffalo is helping a ghost try to figure out who she is and what happened to her and how to move on or whatever. But Reese Witherspoon still doesn't believe that she's dead. And Bill Hader is sort of a psychic, and he says she's not dead. She's something else that he can't put his finger on. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So it's a glorious romantic comedy filmed in San Francisco, all over the place, gorgeous shots, scenes in San Francisco, just shot all over San Francisco. Great to see different aspects of San Francisco because I love San Francisco. Gorgeous movie, gorgeously shot movie, a slightly different romantic comedy that does tread into some of the cliches, but skirts them enough to make it an interesting and unique romantic comedy film. Just Like Heaven is my number one movie I saw this year. I haven't seen it in a while because as I said, I saw it it was like every week I was watching it. So it got to the point where, I love watching it, but I need to kind of, maybe get away from it for a while. I haven't watched it now for a couple months, so it might be about time to do a rewatch here in a little bit when I get some free time. But that's my list of the top 15 movies I saw this year via streaming, movie theaters, or movies that had already come out that I'd never seen before. As I said, I plan to do make this an annual tradition. So starting January 1st, any movies that I watch from January 1st to December 30th, 31st, whenever I do my list show for the movies I saw that year, we'll do it and we'll compare it. I did 15 this year. Maybe next year I'll do 20. As I said, there are a bunch of Anne Hathaway movies I want to watch. There's a bunch of movies that are coming out in the movie theater I want to watch. More Sydney Sweeney stuff. More Florence Pugh stuff. more Andrew Garfield stuff, obviously, but also other movies that have been lingering, like Mickey 17, or some of these Netflix movies that are coming out and shows and so on and so forth. Not shows because I'm not talking about shows, but movies. Happy Gilmore 2, stuff like that. Marvel movies, sequels, stuff like that. Animated films. We got a lot going on. There's other movies that came out like last Christmas, or this Christmas rather, the animated film from Richard, the guy who did Love Actually and Notting Hill and Four Weddings and Funeral. Richard Jordan, maybe something like that. I want to see that film, so that might be next year. There's a ton of movies I haven't seen. Like I want to see Sex and Other Drugs with Anne Hathaway. I want to see Cocaine Bear. There's a lot of movies, as I said. My plan is my family is going to be gone the week of 4th of July. And as long as I don't have any medical emergencies, I should have enough vacation time that I can take off that week. I'll be I won't need to use vacation for that Friday since it's 4th of July, but I'll be able to, they'll leave on Sunday. So from Sunday to the 4th of July, I'll be able to watch nothing but movies. I'll do other stuff as well, play some Fortnite, Pokemon Go, stuff like that, and do 4th of July stuff. And I'll watch some patriotic movies that I always watch all the time around 4th of July. But I will have like that whole period, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, even Thursday and Friday or somewhat, that I can, as I said, just pick a pile of movies up and just pop them in and watch them. So I might have, if I can do that and get that done, and I can get myself motivated to do that, I could see a lot of good stuff. Plus, as I said, Saturday night, I haven't seen it yet. It's coming on DVD next month, so I'll be able to get that. So good stuff. So that's the movies I saw this year that I enjoyed, my rankings of them. This is my last show, list show, Dylan Knows show, whatever, for 2024. My next Dylan Knows show will be in 2025. My next list show will probably also be in 2025. I've got options. I don't know what it's going to be yet, though. So thanks very much for watching, and Happy New Year. Be safe. Go out and watch movies. Definitely go to the movie theater. Check out. I think I want to watch Nosferatu also. So go out to the movies, check stuff out, and enjoy yourself. Happy New Year. Thanks for watching.